Today we're breaking down how magic is actually inherited and diving deep into the rules of wizard genetics and the magical mutation theory. Who gets magic, who doesn't, and why the system is way more chaotic than it looks. Part 1. Magic isn't a gene, it's a core. When people talk about magical inheritance, they usually imagine simple genetics, as if magic is a dominant or recessive trait. Even J.K. Rowling once hinted at a genetic model, but the books don't behave like real genetics at all. The much more consistent idea is that magic isn't a single gene. It's a magical core, a biological trait that's inherited, but not in a clean, predictable way. Think of the magical core as something like an organ or reservoir of energy. Everyone born into a magical family has one, and many non-magical families secretly carry the dormant potential for one. But here's the key. Not every core activates, and not every activated core grows the same way. Some flare early, some develop slowly, some stay weak, and some become ridiculously powerful. This one idea explains practically everything in the wizarding world. Why squibs exist, why Muggle-borns appear out of nowhere, why magical families weaken over generations, why some wizards can cast spells without wands, why kids' magic is chaotic, and why characters like Dumbledore or Voldemort are so absurdly powerful. It all comes back to how the core forms, activates, and develops. Part 2. Why magical families lose power. Pureblood families treat their magic like a priceless heirloom, but canon hints at the opposite. By the 1990s, many of the so-called noble houses were basically collapsing. They were dying out, producing squibs or sliding into instability. The Blacks, the Gaunts, even the Lestranges all showed signs of magical deterioration. The reason is simple. When a family keeps marrying within the same small pool of relatives for generations, the magical core stops getting the healthy variety it needs. Inbreeding in the wizarding world isn't just a social problem, it's a magical one. Their cores weaken, their power becomes unstable, and some cores fail to activate at all. This explains why the Gaunts became violent, unstable, and magically unpredictable. It explains why the Blacks quietly hid squibs in the attic or pretended they didn't exist. And it explains why Voldemort himself came from a magical line that was already falling apart. The irony is that the more purebloods try to protect their magic, the more they drain the strength out of it. Part 3. Where Muggle-borns really come from. Now, onto the opposite scenario. Muggle-born witches and wizards. These aren't random mutations out of nowhere. A much stronger explanation is that magic runs dormant in non-magical families for generations. Someone, somewhere up the family tree, had a magical core, and it simply never activated in their descendants. Eventually, it sparks back to life in a child who becomes a Muggle-born witch or wizard. This lines up with everything we see in canon. Throughout history, wizards hid in Muggle communities to avoid persecution. Many married into non-magical families and vanished from magical society. Their descendants still carried the potential for magic, even if no one realized it. That's why Muggle-born children often show very strong bursts of wild magic early on. Their magical cores aren't trained by generations of magical upbringing. They wake up suddenly and dramatically. So Muggle-borns aren't anomalies. They're magic rebuilding itself. If you're enjoying the video so far, please give it a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and shows YouTube that people are interested in more deep dives like this one. Part 4. Squibs and what they prove about magic. Squibs are often treated as the opposite of Muggle-borns, and in a way that's exactly right. These are people born into magical families who have everything: lineage, magical ancestry, magical biology, except an activated core. And yet, they're not as non-magical as wizards like to pretend. They can sense enchantments, interact with magical environments without danger, recognize spells being cast, and in some cases even see things Muggles can't. Their magical system exists, but it just doesn't ignite. Squibs show us that magic doesn't disappear from a bloodline. It just weakens, flickers, and sometimes fails to activate. They're living proof that magic behaves like a hereditary trait with variable expression and not a clean on-off switch. Part 5. Can magic evolve? There are hints throughout canon that wizardkind is changing over time. Children now display uncontrolled bursts of magic earlier than before, suggesting the magical core is activating younger. Some abilities, like metamorph magi traits, clearly run in families, which implies magical mutations are real and heritable. Other cultural differences show how flexible magic is. African and Native American witches and wizards rely far less on wands, meaning some magical cores adapt to widespread wandless practice. Meanwhile, British wizards barely attempt wandless practice magic at all, and most of them struggle with it. Culture shapes power. Even obscurials are disappearing. In the 1800s, they were common, but by Harry's time, society had changed enough that they were nearly impossible to find. Wizards literally evolved out of a dangerous magical condition. Magic grows, adapts, weakens, strengthens. It behaves like a biological trait under constant environmental pressure. Part 6. The Magical Mutation Theory. Putting all the pieces together, the most complete model is this. Magic behaves like a hereditary mutation that stabilizes within families but can switch on or off depending on conditions. This explains nearly everything. Magic clusters in families because once a mutation stabilizes, it usually stays active. Squibs appear when the mutation fails to activate fully. Muggle-borns appear when dormant magic reactivates after generations of silence. Strength varies wildly because magical cores have different ranges of potential. Wand compatibility depends on the nature of the core. Emotional magic in children happens because their core hasn't stabilized yet. Prodigies exist because some magical cores activate far beyond typical limits. It's the only model that accounts for the chaos, the patterns, and the exceptions, all at once. Part 7. Could wizards go extinct? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Yes, they technically could, but not for the reasons purebloods fear. Magic wouldn't vanish because of Muggle blood. It would vanish because of inbreeding, isolation, and magical stagnation. Mixed families strengthen the magical core. Muggle-borns reintroduce dormant magical potential, and magical diversity stabilizes the entire population. If anything, magical families that mix thrive. Those that isolate themselves fade away. The pureblood ideology didn't protect magic, it damaged it. So that's the truth behind magical inheritance. It is a shifting system of dormant power, luck, ancestry, and evolution. No bloodline is guaranteed, and magic clearly has a mind of its own. If you like the deep dive, hit like and subscribe for more lore like this, and let me know in the comments, which part surprised you the most, and what theory about wizard genetics do you think fits best? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.